Today's episode contains quotations with language deemed today as derogatory. We have decided to include the quotations in their original form for historical accuracy, but do advise our listeners to listen at your own discretion. What is art without the muse? Many of Western art's most famous works are depictions of women. But who were these women? Do they have their own stories to share with the world? Hello and welcome to ArtMuse, a podcast that aims to reshape the ways in which we interpret well-known works of art by paying dues to the women whose images have been immortalized, but whose names and stories have been wrongfully overlooked. While these women's faces are familiar to viewers around the world, their identities have been largely forgotten. Together we will explore the important lives and legacy of the female muse and appreciate these works of art from a new perspective, through the eyes of the women whose image stares back at us. Is the muse in actuality just as, if not more, important than the artists themselves? And I'm your host, Grace Anna. Welcome to part 2 of our 2-part episode on Marian Anderson. In part 1, we explored Marian's childhood in South Philadelphia, the beginnings of her musical career, and her transformative time in Europe, where she became a singing sensation, impressing even the famed conductor Toscanini. We left things off in our story just as Marian was returning to America in December of 1935, hoping to find the same success in her home country as she had in Europe. To mark her return, her new manager, Saul Hurok, organized a solo performance at New York's Town Hall, the same venue that years prior had nearly crushed Marian's hopes of becoming a professional singer. Marian wasted no time in rehearsing for her big return to America, practicing her performance while still on the steamship home. Not only could she prove herself as a leading American talent, but she could finally erase the memories of her previous failed performance at New York's Town Hall for good. But Marian could not catch a break, both figuratively and literally. On the third day of her return trip aboard the steamship, Marian slipped down a set of stairs and broke her ankle. As Marian later remembered, "I was relaxing out on the deck when I noticed that it was almost time for my rehearsal. I hastened to the stairway, intent on getting down to my room to pick up my music. The sea was rough that day, and as I started down, with my hands touching the rail very lightly, the ship lurched. I lost my balance, stumbled, reached for the rail and tumbled down the stairs. My ankle seemed to buckle under me, and I actually saw stars. The first thought that entered my mind was, I wonder if I can do that concert. And the next was, why not?" When Marian arrived in Philadelphia, she immediately went to see a doctor. Unfortunately, her x-rays showed that she had broken her ankle and would need to be in a cast for at least 6 weeks. With her big New York performance less than a week away, Marian could have canceled her performance to recover. But Marian would not let anything stop her from reclaiming her glory, both in America and more specifically, at the venue that had once nearly shattered her confidence in herself. Not only would Marian still perform, but she would make sure that no one knew that she had broken her ankle. As Marian explained, "To tell the audience I was singing despite a broken ankle would smack us searching for pity, and I was not there for pity that night. I was there to present myself as an artist and to be judged by that standard only." To hide her broken ankle, Marian wore a long, elegant golden dress that spilled onto the floor and completely concealed her cast. Before the curtains opened, she positioned herself on stage, standing seductively against her piano. Marian spent the entirety of the performance in that position, waiting to walk off stage until the curtain had closed. Not only had Marian gotten through the whole show without the audience knowing that she had a broken ankle, her voice left the entire theater in tears. As the curtains closed, Marian looked out onto a standing ovation, the crowd roaring with applause and cheers. And the reviews were equally full of praise. As one laudatory review from the New York Times read, "Let it be said at the outset, Marian Anderson has returned to her native land, one of the greatest singers of our time. Her music making proved too deep for words. The very sound of her voice was electrifying. Full, opulent, velvety, it swelled out like a mighty organ." Her debut performance after returning to America had been a massive success, and Marian was finally getting the respect she deserved in her home country. As Marian later remarked, "If there had been one appearance that seemed like a leap forward, this town hall event was it. I resolved to make myself equal to the challenge of this new sphere." With Hurrock's management, Marian went on to have a triumphant first season back in America, performing at prestigious places such as Carnegie Hall and the Philadelphia Forum. And in the audiences of these performances were America's most powerful families, like the Morgans, Astors, and Roosevelts. In fact, Marian impressed the Roosevelts so much that she was invited to give a private concert at the White House in 1936. Marian particularly hit it off with Mrs. Roosevelt, who Marian described as a beauty as big as life itself. And the feeling was certainly mutual. Mrs. Roosevelt took an immediate liking to Marian as well, and respected her not only as a singer, but as a strong and independent woman. As author Alan Kyler wrote, "In spite of their differences in background, Anderson and Mrs. Roosevelt sensed in each other a common experience of disappointment and struggle. The shared understanding of women seeking, each in their own way, her rightful place in an often hostile world, a place in which to find both self-approval and public approval. It was a bond that would draw them together in the years ahead as their lives continued to touch. And as we will soon see, their lives would touch in significant ways. And Eleanor Roosevelt would offer Marian the greatest stage that she would ever sing on." Over the course of the next few years, Marian's success in both Europe and America only grew. In Europe, she continued to perform to sold-out audiences across the continent, especially popular in London, Paris, Budapest, and Moscow. And her 1937 through 1938 U.S. tours were equally as triumphant. Hurrock proved to be a great fit as a manager, and he really helped elevate Marian to new levels of stardom. On top of booking shows at many of the world's biggest stages, Marian was given slots on national radio programs and a record deal with RCA Victor. Marian's fee for performances was also on the rise, getting paid as much as $2,000 per event. But perhaps most meaningful, Marian became an important figure within America's Black communities and was seen as a leading light amidst the darkness of Jim Crow law. Out of recognition for her achievements as both an artist and leading Black figure, in 1938, Marian was awarded an honorary doctorate of music by Howard University. But despite her continued achievements, Marian was unfortunately not immune to racial prejudice. In 1939, Marian's manager, Sol Hurrock, wanted to organize a concert for Marian in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was a segregated city, and its large Black population certainly would have experienced both segregation and racism on a daily basis. For instance, while a Black entertainer could perform at the National Theater, Black patrons were not allowed in its audience. Most movie theaters also did not allow Black patrons, and the one that did had a cement wall going down the middle to segregate Black and white moviegoers. Nonetheless, given Marian's notoriety, Hurok did not see an issue with booking Marian at Washington, D.C.'s famous Constitutional Hall, a well-respected venue that could accommodate an audience of up to 4,000 people. But every time Hurok suggested a date for Marian to perform, Dar, Daughters of the American Revolution, who owned Constitutional Hall, would respond that the venue was booked. Confused, Hurok asked one of his white clients to contact Dar with the same dates, and he was told that they were all available. It was clear that Dar did not want Marian to perform there, and that the reason was because she was Black. Furious, Hurok wrote a letter to Constitutional Hall, pleading that they reconsider. As he exclaimed, "Without attempting to discuss the justification of such a policy, we are asking whether you would waive the restriction in the case of Miss Anderson. It need not be pointed out to you, we hope, that Marian Anderson is one of the greatest living singers, and the application of such a restriction would be to deny a great musical experience to the people of your city." Sadly, Marian's world-renowned reputation, countless accolades, and voice widely regarded as one of the best of her entire generation, was not enough to persuade Dar to change its policy. Instead, they reiterated that their contracts clearly state concerts by white artists only. Though she had every right to be infuriated, Marian decided not to fight back. Instead, she held her head high and continued to perform at other venues. Always a private person, she kept her innermost feelings to herself, later admitting that she felt incredibly hurt to be rejected so coldly, and was ashamed to be an American when her own country had turned its back on her. Despite her hurt, Marian did have a faith deep down that this injustice would not go unnoticed. As she wrote, "I was saddened, but as it is my belief that right will win, I assumed that a way would be found. But that way would come in forms Marian could have never imagined." That February, while Marian was on tour in San Francisco, she caught a glimpse of a newspaper with the headline, "Mrs. Roosevelt Takes Stand, Resigns from Dar." Grabbing the paper, Marian stood in awe as she read Eleanor Roosevelt's resignation letter, which defended Marian's right to perform. As Mrs. Roosevelt wrote, "I am in complete disagreement with the attitude taken in refusing Constitutional Hall to a great artist. You had an opportunity to lead in an enlightened way, and it seems to me that your organization has failed." She ended with the powerful words, "To remain a member implies approval of that action, and therefore I am resigning." Though Dar had rejected Marian, Eleanor Roosevelt made it clear that she was standing in allyship with Marian and did not approve of Dar's racist policies. Marian, who already greatly admired Eleanor Roosevelt, had never felt so proud of her country's First Lady. As Marian wrote, "I was not surprised at Mrs. Roosevelt's action, because she seemed to me to be one who really comprehended the true meaning of democracy. I'm shocked beyond words to be barred from the capital of my own country, after having appeared in almost every other capital in the world." And Marian was right to not be fully surprised. Up until this time, Eleanor Roosevelt had been a strong advocate of racial equality. In fact, she was the first person to open the doors of the White House to early civil rights leaders, and regularly invited Black entertainers to perform for her and the president, including Marian herself. But though Eleanor Roosevelt may have been forward-thinking in this way, Her decision to resign from DAR caused a national uproar. While many defended her, others saw her action as audacious and disrespectful. In fact, more than 30% of the country did not agree that she should have resigned and saw nothing wrong with DAR's policy. This emboldened DAR to not back down, even after Eleanor Roosevelt's resignation. This also meant that Marian was now at the center of a national debate over racial inequality in America. And despite her attempts to remain impartial and not involve herself, Marian's entire life was turned upside down. As Marian wrote in her memoir, "The excitement over the denial of Constitutional Hall to me did not die down. It seemed to increase and follow me wherever I went. I could not escape it. My friends wanted to discuss it, and even strangers went out of their way to express their strong feelings of sympathy and support. Where were my own feelings? I was saddened and ashamed. Could I have erased the bitterness, I would have done so gladly. The unpleasantness disturbed me, and if it had been up to me alone, I would have sought a way to wipe it out. I have been in this world long enough to know that there are all kinds of people, all suited by their own natures for different tasks. It would be fooling myself to think I was meant to be a fearless fighter. I was not." Though Marian may have preferred to stay out of the spotlight, she would soon be given an opportunity too great to refuse. On March 30th, the officials of the Department of the Interior invited Marian to give an open-air concert in front of the Lincoln Memorial that upcoming Easter Sunday. The invitation for Marian to perform in front of Lincoln's statue, the man who had signed the Emancipation Proclamation and officially put an end to slavery, was sending a clear message to DAR and all those who supported them. America was a land of the free, and that meant free for all. With less than a week to prepare, Marian was hesitant to accept. But she knew that this situation had come to represent something much larger than just herself. As she later shared, "I said yes, but the yes did not come easily or quickly. I don't like a lot of show, and one could not tell in advance what direction the affair would take. I studied my conscience. In principle, the idea was sound, but it could not be comfortable to me as an individual. As I thought further, I could see that my significance as an individual was small in this affair. I had become, whether I liked it or not, a symbol representing my people. I had to appear. In my heart, I knew. I could not run away from this situation. If I had anything to offer, I would have to do so now." Marian's iconic Easter Sunday performance took place on April 9, 1939. She was so nervous in the days leading up to the concert that she could barely sleep. But on that morning, the sun was shining extra bright, and the cherry blossoms were in full bloom, as if Mother Nature herself were giving Marian a comforting nudge. As she made her way to the Lincoln Memorial, she saw from her car window a crowd of nearly 100,000 people forming in the National Mall. How did Marian feel in the moments leading up to her performance? Was she overcome with fear? Did she wish she could hide from the spotlight? Or was she filled with a sense of purpose, that she was representing something greater than herself, and that she owed it to her people to hold her head high and sing from her heart? Marian was called onto the stage by the Secretary of the Interior, Harold Ikes, who declared to the crowd, "In this great auditorium under the sky, all of us are free. When God gave us the wonderful outdoors and the sun, the moon, and the stars, He made no distinction of race or creed or color. Genius, like justice, is blind. For genius has touched with the tip of her wing this woman, who, if it had not been for the heart of Lincoln, would not be able to stand among us as a free individual in a free land. Genius dates no color line. She had endowed Marian Anderson with such a voice as lifts any individual above his fellows, as is a matter of exultant pride to any race. And so, it is fitting that Marian Anderson should raise her voice in tribute to the noble Lincoln. We are grateful to Miss Anderson for coming here to sing to us today. As Marian walked to the microphone and looked out at the massive crowd, she shivered with anticipation and fear. As she later described, "All I knew then, as I stepped forward, was the overwhelming impact of that vast multitude. There seemed to be people as far as the eye could see. The crowd stretched in a great semicircle from the Lincoln Memorial around the reflecting pool onto the shaft of the Washington Monument. I had a feeling that a great wave of goodwill poured out from these people, almost engulfing me. And when I stood up to sing our national anthem, I felt, for a moment, as though I were choking. I sang, I don't know how. There must have been the help of professionalism I had accumulated over the years. Without it, I could not have gotten through the program." The audience never perceived Marian's nerves. Instead, they were brought to tears as she sang songs of her country and songs of freedom. Lyrics like, "My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty," filled the air with palpable irony, a collective knowing that in this country not everyone was free, an injustice that Marian called to change with every note she crooned. As Marian concluded her performance, the entire audience roared with applause. Filled with a sense of bewilderment and awe, Marian stuttered to the crowd, "I am overwhelmed. I just can't talk. I can't tell you what you have done for me today. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, again and again." Though she could not find the words, Marian knew in that moment that she was a part of something monumental, and that her performance would go down in history as a pivotal turning point in the fight for racial equality in America. We'll continue our story after a brief word from our advertisers. Welcome back, listeners. Now let's dive back in. Marian's performance at the Lincoln Memorial transformed her into a national celebrity overnight. Though she had garnered fame and respect over her successful singing career, the Easter Sunday performance turned her into a household name, not only as a performer, but as an early civil rights activist. Riding on the curtails of her newfound stardom, Marian went on to have an incredibly successful concert season in the months following. As author Alan Kyler wrote, "For Marian, full understanding of her appearance at the Lincoln Memorial would come only later. For the moment, she experienced only the heightened excitement and enthusiasm that greeted her as she finished her season of concerts. She had in fact become a celebrity. The mood in the black press especially was one of euphoria. At her Carnegie Hall performance, which took place just a week after Easter Sunday, a crazed crowd practically stormed the floor to get as close to Marian as possible. That June, Marian was invited to sing at the White House for a special concert, which had the King and Queen of England in attendance. And the month following, Marian was presented with the Spingarn Medal, an award given by the NAACP, quote, to the Black American who has attained the noblest achievement in any honorary pursuit. As the NAACP spokesperson declared, Marian Anderson has been chosen for her special achievement in the field of music. Equally with that achievement, which has won her worldwide fame as one of the greatest singers of our time, is her magnificent dignity as a human being, her unassuming manner, which has not been changed by her phenomenal success, has added to the esteem not only of Marian Anderson as an individual, but of the race of which she belongs. The award itself was presented by none other than Eleanor Roosevelt, who gave a complimentary speech on the national radio, praising Marian, who she said had the courage to meet many difficulties and that her modesty and her great gifts were well known. Marian and Eleanor Roosevelt would stay in touch over the next many years and shared a deep mutual respect for one another. As Marian later wrote of Mrs. Roosevelt, "She is one of the most admirable human beings I have ever met. Wherever she goes, there is praise for her and what she stands for. I suspect that she has done a great deal for people that has never been divulged publicly. I know what she has done for me." Through the course of Marian's 1939 to 1940 concert season, Marian gave over 90 performances across the globe, including concerts in Israel and Japan, where she performed for Japan's Empress. In 1941, Marian was awarded the Philadelphia Award, which granted her $25,000, which she used to establish the Marian Anderson Scholarship Fund, with the mission of, in Marian's own words, supporting poor, unfortunate, but nevertheless very talented people to do something for which they have dreamed all of their lives. And perhaps most significantly, in 1943, Marian was invited to sing at Constitutional Hall by Dar, who had finally reversed their prejudiced policy. But Marian only accepted under the condition that Black patrons were allowed to attend, and more than this, that the audience would not be segregated. This time, Dar accepted Marian's terms without protest. Marian went on to perform at Constitutional Hall to an integrated crowd of 4,000 people. Though Marian was now celebrated as a national celebrity, and organizations like Dar, who had once banned her from singing, were slowly reversing their policies, Marian still continued to face discrimination through the 1930s and 40s. During her stay in Birmingham, Alabama, Marian could not find a single restaurant in the entire city that would serve her a meal before her concert. In Atlantic City, where Marian was honored with the keys to the city, she was refused a room in every hotel. In Springfield, Illinois, where Marian sang at the premiere of a film about Abraham Lincoln, she was denied a room at the Lincoln Hotel. And at a hotel in the South, Marian was told that her kind was not welcome there. As Marian once wrote, "I can recall one painful situation, and I hope I never encounter anything like it again. We arrived at a hotel in a small town, and the concierge worker said, 'You know we can't take you in here.'" Marian tried her best to not give these moments too much power, and to move past them with her head held high. As she later explained, "It is more comfortable not to think about it if I can avoid it. I have a performance to give, and if my mind dwells even partially on the disconcerting thought that I am staying where I am not really welcome, I cannot go out and sing as though my heart were full of love and happiness." Instead of relying on restaurants, Marian began to cook her own meals. And instead of staying at hotels, Marian arranged to stay with friends. And when she was allowed in these public spaces, Marian always acted with graciousness and dignity. She saw herself as an ambassador for her race, and she would fight discrimination by leaving as positive an impression as possible on those around her. Despite the hateful policies of Jim Crow law, Marian decided to lead with love and prayed that change would follow. It should be noted that Marian was not without allies. In 1937, after Marian was denied a room at a hotel in Princeton, Albert Einstein invited Marian to stay with him instead. Marian and Einstein remained in touch for many years, and she even stayed with him in the months before he died in 1955. And Marian herself did not always remain passive, especially as she aged. What hurt Marian more than herself being denied at hotels and restaurants was Black patrons being denied at her shows or being forced to sit in segregated areas. Marian eventually made a stance that she would no longer sing in any venue that was segregated. As Marian wrote, "I was never very happy about singing in halls where segregation was practiced. Some years ago, I decided that I had had enough, and I made it a rule that I would not sing where there was segregation. It meant the loss of several engagements a year. I am sorry to give up warm and enthusiastic audiences. I do not feel, however, that these audiences are irretrievably lost because I am standing on principle. I may be able to go back someday and sing to non-segregated audiences. If not I, someone else surely will." As Marian approached her 40s, she was ready to be less passive in her love life as well. By 1939, Marian and her high school sweetheart King once again began to spend time with one another. Though both Marian and King had devoted themselves to their respective careers, Marian as a singer and King as a licensed architect, they had never stopped being in touch. Now, almost 20 years later, and with both of their careers in a stable place, they were ready to finally commit to one another as husband and wife. As author Alan Kyler wrote, "Marian never resigned herself to a life without marriage. It was only a matter of timing. She was now one of America's most sought-after singers. The Lincoln Memorial Concert had helped make her a national celebrity. Now, in her 40s, anxious for the comforts of a home of her own, steady and enduring companionship, even occasional domesticity, she was ready for marriage." Marian and Orpheus King Fisher officially tied the knot on July 17th of 1943 in a small ceremony at the Bethel Methodist Church in Connecticut. Both Marian and King agreed that their marriage was worth the over 20-year wait. As Marian later shared, "We knew that someday we would be married. What with King's busy career as an architect and mine with its recurrent long absences from home, our wedding did not take place until 1943. It was worth waiting for." Soon after getting married, Marian and King began to look for a new home that they could share together. Marian was also seeking a refuge from the public eye. They were particularly interested in farmhouses, where they could own surrounding land. Unfortunately, the harsh realities of Jim Crow law crept its way through, even in such a joyous moment in Marian's life. Many homeowners refused to sell to Marian because she was Black, regardless of her fame. Because King was white passing, they found they had better luck when King looked for houses on his own. As Marian wrote, "If King were not married to me or to someone else with as dark a skin as mine, he could live anywhere he chose and hold any job he's qualified for. The minute I come into the picture, everything changes." And as King chimed in, "Finally, I got so disgusted I bought our house without Marian seeing it. The owner tried to stop the sale later, but it was too late." The home that Marian and King purchased was a 3-story Victorian farmhouse located on 100-acre farmland in Danbury, Connecticut. Because King was an architect, he helped renovate the home to have modern conveniences, like an updated kitchen and a separate music studio for Marian. They also set up an active farm with horses, pigs, chickens, and cows, as well as a garden where Marian grew her own fruits and vegetables. As Alan Kyler wrote, Marian was the visionary, seeing in her mind's eye a refuge of splendor and luxury from work and travel, and from the insensitive and hurtful impact of prejudice and rejection that was never far away. King was the executor, the great designer and planner, working in some capacity on every nook and cranny of the house and the farm. King decided to name their new home Mariana Farm in honor of Marian. Marian would go on to live at Mariana Farm for the next 50 years. Through her long residency, she was an active member of the Danbury community, performing at the Danbury State Fair, singing at its City Hall, and giving concerts at Danbury High School, where she served on the board of its music center. Though she worked with many young students and community members, Marian never had children of her own. As she wrote in her memoir, "When we were married, we made plans to have a family, but I had more concert work than ever before, and we postponed things. We both felt that we wanted to raise our own children, not turn them over to nurses. Certainly, I did not want to drag a child with me on my travels, remembering that out of 7 nights in a week, we might spend 5 or 6 in different beds. When I see other people with children, I wonder whether our decision was right. I know that children make a home complete, and I know that my husband would have been a good father. I admire the women in my profession who manage to sustain singing careers and raise families. Perhaps I should have been more daring. But one has to be true to one's nature, which left me no choice but to make this additional sacrifice." But though Marian did not have children of her own, she did have some wonderful portraits made around this time to help carry on her legacy. Between the years of 1939 and 1948, Marian was painted by William H. Johnson and Laura Wheeler Waring, and photographed by Irving Penn. William H. Johnson, a black folk painter from South Carolina, first painted Marian in 1939. Titled Marian Anderson No. 1, Johnson depicted Marian during her iconic performance in front of the Lincoln Memorial. The portrait is bursting with color. The sky behind Marian is a vibrant blue. Lincoln's statue is a bubblegum pink, and the lights on the stage glow in orange, yellow, and red hues. Here Marian takes center stage, her arms clasped above her navel as she belts out a tune. She is positioned in between Lincoln's 2 colossal arms, as if the former president is giving Marian a warm embrace. As the Smithsonian writes, in this painting, Anderson sings and Lincoln wholeheartedly approves. Johnson painted Marian for a second time in 1945. Titled Marian Anderson, Johnson once again captured Marian singing at the Lincoln Memorial. But this time she is surrounded by a montage of other images. To her left is a blue silhouette of Abraham Lincoln, and to her right, a small depiction of Marian shaking hands with Eleanor Roosevelt, and above her head, the Liberty Bell. Johnson also depicted Marian's accompanist, Kosti Vihanen, above her right shoulder. Covering the rest of the canvas, Johnson has included images of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, St. Peter's in Rome, and St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow to commemorate Marian's years in Europe. As the Smithsonian describes, in this rich and complex narrative, Anderson is surrounded by people and places that were important in her formative years. In this way, Johnson creates a pictorial biography of Marian, with painted snapshots of meaningful moments from her life. In 1944, Marian was also painted by the female artist Laura Wheeler Waring. Waring was one of the most significant female artists active during the Harlem Renaissance, and is best known for her portraits of prominent African American figures. Waring first saw Marian in 1916 during one of Marian's tours across Europe, and had been starstruck by Marian ever since. Waring was thrilled when almost 30 years later, Marian invited her to Mariana Farm to paint her portrait. Titled Portrait of Marian Anderson, here we find Marian dressed elegantly in a long red dress. She stands, poised and measured, with her hands clasped below her chest. As the National Portrait Gallery writes, Anderson's pose reflects the calm and graceful stance of a seasoned singer, patiently waiting for the applause to die down before bursting forth into song. But here Marian is not pictured in front of a stage, but rather in the quietude of her private studio. Behind her, a single window looks out onto an idyllic landscape, presumably Mariana Farm. Waring's portrait of Marian feels to be her most intimate, a private moment of reflection in the pleasure of her own company. Lastly, in 1948, Marian was photographed by the famed fashion photographer Irving Penn. The black and white portrait was originally taken for Vogue magazine, which featured Marian in a cover story. In Penn's striking image, Marian is dressed in a black lace dress, which billows out onto the floor. She is seated with her hands folded across her waist as she flashes the viewer a mischievous smile. It almost looks as if Marian is in the midst of telling a joke. Here Marian is every bit elegant, charming, and full of life. We'll continue our story after a brief word from our advertisers. Welcome back, listeners. Now let's dive back in. Marian continued to perform around the world in the years following World War II. In 1953, she was invited to perform in Japan, traveling to Tokyo, Osaka, and Nagoya. While in Asia, Marian also traveled to Korea to entertain American troops stationed there during the Korean War. She even sang at an American hospital ship off of Incheon. And Marian not only graced stages across the globe, but also national TV. In June of 1953, Marian headlined the Ford 50th Anniversary Show, a 2-hour television program celebrating Ford Motor Company's 50th anniversary. The program was broadcast live from New York City and shown on major channels such as NBC and CBS. Marian sang "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands" halfway through the program, and closed the show with her own rendition of Battle Hymn of the Republic. The Ford 50th Anniversary Show had over 60 million viewers and catapulted Marian's fame to even greater heights. And her fame would only continue to rise when in 1954, she became the first Black singer to ever perform at the Metropolitan Opera. Though Marian had already achieved more than she could ever have imagined, worldwide notoriety, presidential honors, and performing on the biggest stages across the globe, there was one goal of hers that she had not yet attained: performing at New York's renowned Metropolitan Opera. Up until this point, Black singers of both sexes were not allowed to sing in the opera, so Marian had never considered it a possibility. But that September, she was approached by Rudolph Bing, the director of the Metropolitan Opera, who asked Marian if she would perform the role of Ulrica in the Met's upcoming production of Giuseppe Verdi's Un ballo in maschera. Marian could hardly believe her ears. Not only was Bing offering her a role at the Metropolitan Opera, but the privilege to be the first Black performer to ever sing on its stage, an honor that Marian did not take lightly. Marian was so excited by Bing's offer that she immediately called her mother. As she later recalled, "The excitement was too much. I telephoned Mother in Philadelphia. I fear I must have been incoherent." The role of Ulrika was small, but an essential one to the opera's storyline. Ulrika is a fortune teller who dramatically tells the protagonist that he will soon be murdered by one of his friends. Marian not only had her own solo parts, but also sang in duets, trios, and with the main chorus. Marian practiced her part for months, both with her cast and behind the scenes with her singing coach. Marian enjoyed every bit of the experience. She absolutely loved the world of the opera. The extravagant costumes, the dramatic staging, and the cast full of opera greats like Richard Tucker and Robert Merrill. But when opening night came on January 7th of 1955, Marian was frozen with fear. Not only was Marian performing opera for the first time, but she knew that she was breaking history as the first Black performer at the Met. As the curtains opened onto the audience, which included distinguished guests like Helen Keller, Langston Hughes, and the Duchess of Windsor, Marian felt her chest tighten with trepidation. As she later wrote, "I trembled, and when the audience applauded and applauded before I could sing a note, I felt myself tightening into a knot. I had always assured people that I was not nervous about singing, but at that moment, I was as nervous as a kitten. With my experience behind me, I should have been firm and secure, but my emotions were too strong." Unsurprisingly, Marian's performance was a massive success, and she received a standing ovation, not only on opening night, but on each night of the season's run. When the season ended, Bing asked Marian to return the following year, an invitation Marian gladly accepted. For Marian, performing at the Metropolitan Opera was one of her life's greatest achievements. As she later shared, "The chance to be a member of the Metropolitan has been a highlight of my life. It has meant so much to me and to my people. I have been privileged to serve as a symbol, to be the first Negro to sing as a regular member of the company. I take greater pride from knowing that it has encouraged other singers of my group to realize that the doors everywhere may open increasingly to those who have prepared themselves well. I am grateful to the Metropolitan for the tactful way in which the entire thing was managed, and I will never forget the wholehearted responsiveness of the public. I may have dreamed of such things, but I had not foreseen that I would play a part in the reality." Marian's pivotal performances with the Metropolitan Opera paved the way for future Black opera singers like Leontine Price, who often expressed her admiration for Marian. The same year that Marian debuted at the Metropolitan Opera, she was captured on both canvas and film by Betsy Graves Renew and Richard Avedon, respectively. Renew was a female American painter, best known for her series of portraits of prominent African American figures. In her portrait of Marian, Marian stands in front of the Lincoln Memorial, dignified and proud. She wears an elegant fur coat over a long crimson dress. In her right hand, she holds a stylish pair of white leather gloves. Here, Marian stares beyond the viewer, out onto a distant future, a future which she knows she's helped shape with her historic performance, a future which she hopes holds freedom for her people. Marian was also photographed by Richard Avedon in 1955. In her black and white portrait, which is now part of the Museum of Modern Art's collection, Marian is captured in an intimate close-up. We feel as if we are almost eye to eye with Marian. able to see every detail of her face. With her eyes closed and mouth wide open, Marian seems to be caught mid-note, serenading us with her angelic voice. And yet, her curiously pursed lips also look as if they may burst into laughter at any moment, perhaps revealing Marian's sillier side. Avedon's portrait of Marian is by far her most informal, a close-up of not only her face, but also of her warm and light-hearted personality. As the years went on, Marian's achievements and successes only continued to accumulate. In 1956, she wrote her own autobiography titled My Lord, What a Morning, which became an instant bestseller. In 1957, she sang at President Eisenhower's inauguration, becoming the first Black performer to ever sing at a presidential inauguration. And President Eisenhower was so impressed with Marian that in 1958, he appointed her as a delegate to the United Nations. Following this appointment, Marian performed all over the world as a goodwill ambassador, representing American values and culture. Over the course of 12 weeks, Marian traveled over 35,000 miles, performing in India, Pakistan, and Thailand. That same year, Marian also received honorary degrees from New York University, Smith College, Dickinson College, and Temple University. In 1961, Marian sang at President John F. Kennedy's inauguration, and perhaps most remarkably, in 1963, Marian was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor that can be given to an American citizen. But by the early 1960s, Marian began to feel the weight of her middle age. Her voice, once powerful enough to fill an entire arena, became freighted and shaky. As Marian once wrote of the taxing nature of performing, there comes a time when one's physical resources are stretched to the limit, and when a voice needs time for rest and recuperation. The business of touring and appearing in public is enormously exciting and enormously wearing. Though she continued to tour throughout America and Europe, Marian knew deep down that her voice was no longer the same. Unfortunately, it wasn't only Marian who noticed a decline in her vocal strength. Critics began expressing their disappointment and suggesting that she consider retirement. Instead, they began to focus on the next generation of singers like Leontine Price. For Marian, the idea of retirement was daunting. How could she ever imagine a life without singing? As Alan Kyler described, the issue was principally one of artistic integrity. When the time for retirement inevitably came, Anderson expressed in her direct and eloquent way the artistic dilemma that all serious artists face as they ponder the question of retirement. Is it impossible to make music like a faucet? Is it something of the heart and soul? As long as they move, the music is there. Whether you can bring it forward is something else. While Marian slowed down with her singing engagements, she turned her focus more and more on the civil rights movement. By the start of the 1960s, the movement had gathered a lot of steam, and figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X were at the forefront of the fight for racial equality in America. Though Marian preferred to stay more discreet, she found her own ways to support the cause. In July of 1963, shortly after the Birmingham campaign, Marian hosted a fundraising event at Mariana Farm in partnership with the NAACP to raise money for the Freedom Fund. And a week later, Marian performed at the March on Washington, singing "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands" just after Dr. King delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. And throughout the movement, Marian continued to perform at benefit concerts in support of the NAACP and the Congress of Racial Equality. But as the mid-1960s approached, Marian knew that her retirement was inevitable and unavoidable. And in the fall of 1964, she organized her farewell tour across America, the last time she would officially tour as a singer. Over the course of the next few months, Marian performed in over 50 American cities, kicking off at Constitutional Hall in October of 1964 and ending at Carnegie Hall in April of 1965. As her final performance came to a close, the audience roared with applause, admiration, and appreciation for Marian and her long and successful career as one of the most celebrated contraltos of her time. Though she had officially retired from singing, Marian vowed to continue to fight for racial justice, joking that she would become a housewife with a vengeance. To celebrate her immense career as a singer, as well as honor her integral role in the civil rights movement, artist Buford Delaney painted Marian in 1965, the same year as her retirement. Delaney, a Black American who had moved to Paris in 1953 to enjoy more societal freedom, was still deeply concerned with and connected to the fight for racial equality in America. In his memory portrait of Marian, made while Delaney was still in Paris, Delaney pays homage to Marian's immense contributions to both the arts as well as the civil rights movement. Encased in a golden background, Marian likens a Byzantine icon, a salute to her icon status within American culture. To Delaney, the color yellow often symbolized hope, and here Marian is literally emanating hope onto the canvas, just as she had onto the world. Staged front and center, with her arms folded at her waist, Marian looks as if she could burst into song at any moment. But before she does, she takes a moment to bask in her own glory. And Marian was not only honored on canvas, but in her later life, she continued to receive accolades and honors from important art institutions as well as the government. In December of 1966, President Johnson appointed Marian as a member of the National Council on the Arts. In 1977, Marian was awarded the United Nations Peace Prize, the Congressional Gold Medal, and New York City's Handel Medallion. That same year, Carnegie Hall hosted a gala for Marian's 80th birthday, with an audience as the New York Times described as pure Marian Anderson, some luminaries, some family members, children, adults, black and white. The following year, Marian received the Kennedy Center honor, given to an individual who has made substantial contributions to American arts and culture. In 1981, Marian received the George Peabody Medal, given to an individual who has excelled in the performing arts. And in 1984, Marian was the first person ever to be honored with the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award of the City of New York. In 1986, she was awarded the National Medal of the Arts. And finally, in 1991, at the age of 94, Marian was honored with the Grammy Award of Lifetime Achievement. When Marian wasn't off accepting accolades, she spent most of her time at Mariana Farm with her husband. Here, not only did Marian enjoy the comforts of her own music studio, but she also took on extensive sewing projects as well as photography, developing her photos in her own darkroom. But tragically, in 1975, King suffered a stroke while they were eating dinner together, and was left paralyzed on his right side and unable to speak. Marian tried her best to care for King on her own, but she eventually needed the help of a part-time nurse and housekeeper. Unfortunately, King's health only worsened over the course of the next few years. In 1986, his physical state was so weakened that he could no longer walk, even with assistance. and that March, after contracting pneumonia, King passed away at the age of 85. How did Marian feel to lose not only her husband of 43 years, but the love of her life for much longer? The man who had stolen her heart from her high school days. Could she now imagine a life without him? After King's death, Marian decided to continue to live at Mariana Farm for the next few years, until her own health began to rapidly decline. In the summer of 1990, Marian was diagnosed with bowel cancer. Wanting to spend the rest of her life in peace and comfort, Marian turned down treatment options and instead wished to remain at home at Mariana Farm for as long as possible. When her condition worsened, Marian agreed to relocate to Portland in 1992 to live with her nephew, James DePriest. She brought her beloved cat, Mush, with her. In Portland, Marian spent the next few months enjoying quiet time with her family. On February 27th of 1993, she celebrated her 96th birthday with her family, indulging in her favorite treat, chocolate raspberry ice cream. But unfortunately, just a month later, Marian's health took a sharp decline, and she suffered an epileptic seizure that March, which took away her ability to speak. She spent her final week slipping in and out of a coma, and in the early hours of April 8th, she passed away from heart failure. Marian was soon after buried at Eden Cemetery in Pennsylvania. That June, over 200 family members, friends, and admirers of Marian gathered for Marian's memorial service, hosted at the Union Baptist Church in South Philadelphia, where Marian first fell in love with singing. The pastor opened the service with the following words: "Back in the first decade of this century, the members of this church saw in Marian Anderson the gifts of God. They saw in her what others had seen in Beethoven and Shakespeare, and perhaps even Michelangelo. We all have been blessed by her music of the soul, music that transcends time. The members of this church heard in that voice the grace and benediction that only God can give." He then played a recording of Marian singing, "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands," leaving the entire audience in awe. As author Alan Kyler beautifully wrote, "For those gathered there, Marian accomplished what she had always accomplished. With her voice, she lifted their spirits." Marian Anderson's immense legacy lives on today in many forms. Although Mariana Farm was sold to developers after Marian's death, the city of Danbury and historians fought to preserve Marian's music studio. Her studio was thereafter restored and relocated to the Danbury Historical Society, where it has been open to the public since 2004. In addition to seeing Marian's private studio, visitors can also see an arrangement of memorabilia and photographs from Marian's long career as a singer. Marian Anderson's house in Philadelphia, as well as the Union Baptist Church, have both been added to the National Register of Historical Places, protecting them against demolition or alteration. Her famed Easter Sunday performance is captured in a documentary titled Marian Anderson, The Lincoln Memorial Concert, which was re-released in 2001 by the Library of Congress. There is also a mural commemorating the performance painted in the Department of Interior building in Washington, D.C. In 1998, artist Faith Ringgold paid homage to Marian in a mosaic mural located in the 125th Street subway station, which still exists today. And in 2019, the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery held an exhibition on Marian titled One Life, Marian Anderson, which, as the Smithsonian described, broadens the focus, delving into underexplored moments of Anderson's decades-long career as a celebrated singer and diplomat. It also highlights the ways she inspired visual artists, ranging from Harlem Renaissance painter Buford Delaney to fashion photographer Irving Penn. Finally, in 2021, PBS released a documentary on Marian titled Voice of Freedom. But in today's episode, we hope to further honor Marian Anderson's immense legacy as one of the greatest American contraltos of all time, as an important figure in the civil rights movement, and as a woman who, by leading with love, shed a light on one of the darkest periods of American history. Of course, above all else, Marian was a singer. She fell in love with singing as an infant in South Philadelphia, and that passion fueled her over her entire life and career. From singing in church choirs to Black colleges, and eventually to the most respected venues around the globe, Marian defied countless odds against her as a Black woman in America to become one of the greatest female singers of her generation. In her heyday, Marian sang with the best conductors and orchestras in the world, sang for presidential inaugurations, and became the first Black singer to ever perform at the Metropolitan Opera. Yet despite her countless achievements and accolades, what Marian loved most was to sing to a crowd. As Marian once wrote, "There is nothing more certain than the feeling you have when your listeners are getting something out of your renditions. Call it, if you will, like radiation. As you step out onto the stage, your audience's eagerness to hear and accept you before you have uttered a sound is a lift. You sense yourself being pulled up abruptly, and as you sing, you find more and more strength coming to you from your audience." And, as author Alan Kyler rightfully put it, Marian Anderson was not obsessed with the possibility of fame. What she worked for was artistic accomplishment. What she expected and felt she deserved were the same opportunities that white concert artists enjoyed. Which brings us to Marian's immense contributions to the civil rights movement. Marian's Easter Sunday performance in front of the Lincoln Memorial was one of the most significant events in American history leading up to the civil rights movement. As she sang in front of the statue of the man who had ended slavery in America, Marian stood as a reminder of how much further America had to go towards real racial justice. Her pivotal performance inspired civil rights leaders Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks to continue the fight towards racial equality. And Marian broke racial barriers again when she became the first Black singer to perform at the Metropolitan Opera, which paved the way for future generations of Black singers like Leontine Price. But as Marian once said of herself, "I wasn't a great fighter. I hope that my work will speak for itself." Marian's impact on the civil rights movement was mainly made by following her passion and her heart. She did not go out picketing and protesting. Instead, she held her head high and stood by her values, hoping to inspire others to follow suit. As author Jerry Ferris beautifully wrote, "She gave us the gift of dignity, the opportunity to correct wrongs, and the moral courage to break down the walls that separate whites and Blacks in America." And as singer Leontine Price said of Marian, "As a nation, we owe her gratitude for showing that talent and dignity can prevail." But perhaps most of all, Marian's participation in the movement was fueled by her belief in her own country, that America had the potential and promise to really become the land of the free. As Marian wrote at the end of her autobiography, "I have been fortunate in many, many ways. Best of all, I have lived in a time of change, and the end of not yet. It has been good to see these changes taking place in our America, good for us all. There is hope for America. When incidents occur in our land that show a disregard for brotherhood among races, our America belittles herself, and her prestige is injured. It hurts me when these things happen through thoughtlessness, neglect, lack of understanding, or acts of calculated humiliation. The United States could set a shining example and could reap rewards far beyond any expectations. All the changes may not come in my time. They may even be left for another world. But I have seen enough changes to believe that they will occur in this one. There are many persons ready to do what is right because in their hearts they know it is right, but they hesitate, waiting for the other fellow to make the first move, and he in turn waits for you. The minute a person whose word means a great deal dares to take the open-hearted and courageous way, many others will follow. Not everyone can be turned aside for meanness and hatred, but the great majority of Americans is heading in that direction. I have a great belief in the future of my people and my country. And Marian's belief in the good of people, faith in a better world, and modest nature did not go unnoticed by those around her. As Marian's nephew once wrote of her, "When I think of those qualities most often associated with Marian Anderson, humility first comes to mind. Humility anchored in faith and gratitude for her gifts. Arrogance was inconceivable. My aunt never felt her successes were hers alone. Rather, they were primarily God's doing. My part in it is very small indeed," she would say. The wonder of Marian Anderson was her remarkable ability to both draw and project strength from her humility and from her faith. She saw herself neither as a victim or a heroine, simply as an artist who happened to be crossing an intersection of United States history when racism collided with conscience. Toscanini praised her, universities honored her, presidents invited her to sing for their inaugurals, kings decorated her, Times put her on its cover. All these trappings of fame she handled with grace, modesty, and considerable gratitude. Of course, Marian's legacy also lives on in the many marvelous portraits of her. She was painted by William H. Johnson, Buford Delaney, Betsy Graves Reyneau, and Laura Wheeler Waring, photographed by Irving Penn and Richard Avedon, and captured in mosaic by Faith Ringgold. These portraits not only capture Marian's beauty, but also her immense spirit, her dignity, her grace, her poise, and her unabating faith in the goodness of the world, even when the world had turned its back on her. Marian lives on in these portraits not just as a remarkable singer, artist, and activist, but also as a remarkable woman who changed the course of history with her compassion, gratitude, and kindness. We end today's episode with a beautiful quote by author Jerry Ferris. Marian raised her voice not in anger, but in song. She never made a public statement against racism, but she worked to turn minds away from prejudice every time she walked onto the stage. For African American singers, Marian Anderson was a role model. She made the path for all African Americans. Marian Anderson's example of persistence, unfailing courtesy, and undaunted spirit has been an inspiration to achieve goals that otherwise might have seemed out of reach. For all people, Marian Anderson represented what, in Jesse Norman's words, is wonderful, simple, pure, and majestic in the human spirit. She was the essence of grace. One did not have to be Black or American or even a music lover to be touched by Marian Anderson in a way that words cannot describe. One only had to be human. I hope you have enjoyed ArtMuse's two-part episode on Marian Anderson. I have included images, resources, and suggestions for further reading on the ArtMuse website and Instagram. ArtMuse is produced by Kula Production Company. Today's episode was written by me, your host, Grace Anna. Stay tuned as I continue to share the stories of the women behind some of the world's greatest works of art. Until next time, bye for now.